as bad as all of these European and South American sovereign nations are, let's not kid ourselves. Mathematically speaking, the worst country is the United States. What's the difference? Here's the analogy I make. The United States, because it is by far the largest economy on the planet, is like a 747 cruising along at 42,000 feet at 600 miles an hour. If all four of the engines simultaneously cut out, the glide ratio on that 747 is a tremendous distance. So it's going to be able to glide for a long way. But if it doesn't make it to an airport, it is going to crash and burn, and everybody is going to die. Whereas these smaller countries in Europe, take a Cyprus, for example. Well, goodness, a Cyprus, if we're going to make an airplane analogy, is just like a little bitty Piper flying around, you know? If all the engines cut, you could conceivably land a Piper in a cornfield somewhere. You can't land a 747 in a cornfield somewhere. Either you make it to the airport, you take drastic evasive measures, and you have an awesome total stud pilot who can get you into an airport and land the thing, or everyone's going to die. And the question I would ask you now is, do you honestly believe that right now we have an uber competent, totally awesome pilot behind the wheel of the plane who A, acknowledges that all four of the engines are out, and B, is actually trying to steer us towards a runway that we can land on? The answer to both of those questions is no. We have the equivalent of a mentally defective baboon behind the wheel of the plane. And by that, I mean national level United States governance, not only in the executive branch, but also in the Congress. These people are not only all universally psychopaths, but they are all universally slack-jawed, mouth-breathing imbeciles. If you have any confidence whatsoever that these people can proverbially land this 747, you are out of your mind. So what do you do to defend yourself against this? Withdraw from the system, get as much of your money out of the financial system as you possibly can, hold some of it in cash because the US dollar will persist as being a unit of value for some period of time. But even though I am not a metals bug by any means, when you are in an emergency situation and you are looking at sovereign collapses, yes, metals absolutely are the place to be. Gold and silver diversified.
All right, and I wanted to move now to this topic of, the U.S. collapsing, as you're saying, and you've said that nothing can stop the economy from collapsing. Quote, when the U.S. rates uptick, the last vestiges of the now dead republic will implode. So do you see when this imploding of the United States economy happens, you're saying it'll just take down the whole financial system of the world, are you saying?
Absolutely, yes. Obama is running up trillions upon trillions upon trillions of dollars in new debt. The most conservative figure is something like 1.2 trillion in new debt per year. The truth is it's more than that, because that figure actually isn't counting the new debt being incurred by Social Security and Medicare. So now understand, okay, Obama since 2009, and then George W. Bush before him was running up large amounts of debt, but Obama has just taken it to this completely mathematically untenable, basically Cloward and Piven strategy level, wherein the Obama regime is actively trying to mathematically collapse the United States. And I firmly believe that they've done it. They've reached critical mass. It can't be walked back now. But understand, let's just call it from the beginning of the Obama regime in 2009. Okay, fine. He's running up $1 trillion in new debt per year, and that debt is being issued, in treasury paper via money, US dollars being just arbitrarily printed out of thin air by the Federal Reserve, and that treasury paper is being issued at what is basically 0%. 90-day T-bill rates just a few years ago were hovering around 5%. They've now been at zero since the beginning of the Obama regime. So you're issuing $1 trillion a year at minimum in new debt, and you're doing it at 0%. Okay, what happens when you take that debt that you have issued and you uptick the interest rates just a little bit, and just to, let's say that treasury paper rates uptick to 3%, which historically is extremely low in an historical context. I mean, 5% was even considered to be historically very low for treasury paper. If you just go from 0% to 3% interest on this debt, you add so much of a debt burden to the budget of the United States per year that it will eat up everything else and will completely collapse the system. But again, reiterating, this was all done intentionally. It's called the Cloward and Piven strategy. Cloward and Francis Fox Piven were professors at Columbia University during the 60s and 70s and perhaps into the 80s. And they taught this cadre of these neo-Stalinists, of whom the front man, of whom the puppet is this guy who is purportedly named Barack Obama. They taught them that the only way that you can destroy the quote unquote evil United States and establish a global totalitarian regime is that you have to collapse the United States from the inside out, primarily economically. And the way you do that is by overloading the federal government with all of these entitlements and all of this debt, and then collapse the entire thing from the inside out. You can't attack it from the outside because the United States was formerly too strong to be attacked militarily from the outside. The way to bring the United States down, and make no mistake, that is the objective of these people. They are traitors. They are seditionists. They are revolutionaries. They are looking to collapse the entire system and have already mathematically accomplished it, is do it from the inside by mathematically overloading the debt load. And that will destroy the US dollar, which will then allow a new, probably global currency backed by the Russians, the Chinese, perhaps the BRIC nations, which would be what? Brazil, Russia, India, China, BRIC, to get them to establish a new currency with perhaps some involvement with the Middle East as well. And if you destroy the US dollar, you basically destroy the United States.
So before we let you go, can you just lay out for our viewers where you see this all going? I mean, what is the end game of all this?
I wish I could end on a better note with you, Elijah, but it's not good at all. I see a total systemic collapse of the United States. I see a total systemic collapse of the US dollar and the financial system, which is why I urge everybody to get out, get out, get out. And if you don't understand what get out means, then there's nothing I can do to help you.